If you're doing business in Malaysia, you know there's a huge shift happening right now. It's the new National Sustainability Reporting Framework, or NSRF, and it's making a lot of companies ask a really important question about all the climate data they've been collecting for years. Is all that hard work about to become totally useless? So let's just cut straight to the chase. With this massive new framework drop in, is that greenhouse gas inventory you've spent so much time and energy building now, well, obsolete? It's a fair question and a huge concern. And by the end of this, I promise you, you'll have a very clear answer. We're going to walk you through this step by step. We'll start with what this new reporting landscape looks like and what the NSRF is actually asking for. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, how your GHG data becomes a powerful engine for compliance, how you give it that crucial credibility check, and why getting it verified is no longer optional. And finally, we'll map out a clear path to get you there. So let's start with the big picture, right? We need to understand this new sustainability mandate in Malaysia and just how much of a game changer it really is for corporate reporting. You can think of the NSRF as creating a new common language for sustainability. The whole point is to make company reports consistent, comparable, and, most importantly, reliable. But what's really driving this? It's global money. The goal here is to boost Malaysia's competitiveness and pull in investors who are now demanding this level of transparency. And, with the Ministry of Finance behind it, yeah, this is the real deal. All right, so that's the what and the why. But what does this new framework actually need you to do? Let's dive into the specifics. Now, what's really crucial here is that Malaysia isn't trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, the NSRF is built on the global gold standard, the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards. And when it comes to climate info, that means one thing and one thing only. You're following the IFRS S2 playbook. And listen, this isn't some far-off, distant deadline. Starting January 1st, 2025, that's right around the corner, the biggest listed companies have to start their climate reporting. Then it rolls out to other listed companies in 2026, and by 2027, it includes companies on the ACE market and even large private ones. The clock is officially ticking. And here it is. This is the money slide, the direct answer to our big question. Far from being obsolete, your GHG inventory is now front and center. Why? Because IFRS S2, the heart of this new climate mandate, requires companies to disclose their Scope 1, Scope 2, and even their Scope 3 GHG emissions. Your inventory isn't obsolete, it's the absolute foundation of your entire report. So let's just reframe this whole thing. Forget about it being an old tool. From now on, think of your GHG inventory as the powerful data engine that's going to drive your compliance with the NSRF. Honestly, without it, you're not going anywhere. Okay, so if your GHG inventory is the engine, then ISO 14064-1 is the engineering blueprint. This is the globally accepted best practice standard for building a strong, reliable, and auditable GHG inventory for your whole company. There's a reason the pros use this one. That's because an inventory built on this ISO standard is so much more than just a spreadsheet. It makes you set clear boundaries, it gives you a solid framework for actually quantifying your emissions, and it builds in quality management from day one. But most importantly, it gets your data ready for someone else to verify it, which creates exactly the kind of high-quality, structured information the NSRF is looking for. But look, just having the data is only step one. Regulators, investors, your customers, they all need to trust that data. So how do you build that kind of credibility?
Well, this is where ISO 14064-3 steps in. If Part 1 is the blueprint for building the engine, then Part 3 is the standard for the official quality inspection. It's the international rulebook that explains exactly how an independent third party checks that your GHG statement is accurate and trustworthy. This is how you get from just having data to having data people can actually believe in.
The standard also helps clear up two words people mix up all the time. Verification, that's looking backward. It's checking if your past emissions data is correct. Validation, that's looking forward. It's about checking if your plans for future emission cuts are actually reasonable. For NSRF compliance, that first step, verification, is absolutely critical. And the process itself, it's not some big mystery. It's actually really logical. The standard breaks it down into 3 clear steps. First, you plan. You analyze the business and look for risks. Second, you execute. The verifier actually gathers the evidence. And finally, completion. They evaluate everything and give their formal, official opinion on how accurate your numbers are. Okay, so this whole credibility check thing, it's not just a nice idea. It's quickly becoming something you absolutely have to do. let's talk about why this whole assurance thing is now pretty much non-negotiable. And you don't have to take my word for it. It's written right inside the NSRF document itself. It says flat out that a framework for assurance, that's the formal process for checking these reports, is coming. This tells us mandatory verification isn't a question of if, it's a question of when.
And we already have a hard deadline on the calendar. Starting January 1st, 2027, the biggest listed companies will be required to have what's called reasonable assurance on their GHG disclosures. Just think of that as a formal audit, a really high level of checking to prove your data is solid, and it's coming up fast.
It's so important to realize that what's happening in Malaysia is part of a much bigger global shift. The creation of a new standard called ISA 5000, that's the big international standard for sustainability assurance, proves that investors and regulators all over the world are demanding this kind of high-quality, verified data. Getting this right now puts you ahead of the curve globally.
And this is huge. Just recently, the two biggest players in this whole space, ISO and the GHG protocol, they announced they're teaming up. Their goal? To create a single, unified set of global standards. So that old dilemma of which standard to follow, well, it's basically solving itself. By getting really good at the ISO framework, you're not just getting ready for Malaysia, you're future-proofing your skills for the entire world.
Okay, phew, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's bring it all home and put all the pieces together into a clear, simple path forward for you. So let's be crystal clear, your GHG inventory is not obsolete. It is the essential foundation you need to comply. The path forward is a really logical three-step process. First, you build a powerful data engine using the ISO 14064-1 blueprint. Second, you verify that it's credible with an audit against ISO 14064-3. And once you've done that, you can take the final step, report with total confidence under the new NSRF. Look, at the end of the day, your new sustainability report is going to tell a really important story about your company to the world, to your investors, to your customers, to regulators. So the real question you have to ask yourself is this: is the data foundation of that story, your GHG inventory, solid enough to be trusted?